Welcome to the May Tech Talk. Chris Hoffman is going to talk a little bit about Creative Commons, kind of what pictures you can use from the internet and other places, and what things you need to be careful with. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask or go ahead and type them in the chat box and let us know if you're having any troubles with audio or anything. We can take a look at it, but we'll turn the time over to Chris and he'll get going. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Braden. So yes, today our NEDARC Tech Talk is about can I use that picture? So it's in general about copyright and yeah, we've been asked this a lot. The Tech Talks are generally centered around things when we have offhand conversations with managers or some other stakeholder that says, gee, I wish I knew that, wish I knew how to do that in PowerPoint. And copyright comes up a lot because we do a lot of presentations, create a lot of documents and whatnot. So it's helpful to know some of this information. So the first disclaimer that I wanted to give on this one is that I am not a lawyer and this is not legal advice. I am an enthusiast at best of copyright information. And so if you have a question about something that you want to use, please check with your legal counsel from your organization. You will get much better and you'll get more protected answers from there than you'll get from me. So, but with that said, I would like to take everyone on into story time now. So everybody get your listening ears on, eyes up front for our fun little story here. I'm going to start our story with a couple of fictional characters here. First one is Chris. He's a fictional character. He's an employee of a company, and he has a boss that I really didn't come up with a name for the fictional boss here, but let's go ahead and just start at the beginning of the alphabet. An A name, any A name. Andrea, that's a good one, super common name. So quote unquote, Andrea comes along and says, hey Chris, you need to make a presentation that you're going to be showing to all of your stakeholders. Well, Chris freaks out a little bit and he says, well, I've read a book about presentations saying that you should use a lot of pictures in your presentations rather than words, right? So Chris takes off to the internet and goes to the world's most famous search engine to look for images. That's, of course, he goes to fnorgle.com. So fnorgle.com, of course, when you're talking to a friend and you're like, I'm going to fnorgle that. You say Wade Boggs was like, had the highest RBI in 1989 for the Boston Red Sox, something like that. Good old Fnorgle. So Chris goes to Fnorgle and says, I need a picture that looks like a kid who is dressed up like an EMS professional. And so top result there is this cute picture, he's got the right uniform on, he's got the blue gloves, the bag and everything. This is perfect. This is exactly what I want for my presentation, right? So he just right clicks on that picture, downloads it onto his local machine, and then he cut and pastes that into his PowerPoint presentation, and he's done, right? Perfect. So we have this presentation, and we've got sort of like a PowerPoint inception going on here. So we've got a PowerPoint inside of a PowerPoint. So Chris is happy with his presentation with this image in here, but Chris has to slow down for a second because what Chris has done here is he has violated copyright law. And so that is, it can be a serious problem. It's one of those that comes up under jaywalking and whatnot. So it is, a lot of times it's like any crime, like if you don't get caught, nothing's going to happen. But it is something that can make your presentations or whatnot look unprofessional. And how terrible would that be to have your boss sit down and say, hey, we got in trouble from a copyright holder because you're using an image or a piece of music or something like that that you're not allowed to use. So that it brings up a lot of questions. How do I know that a photo or a piece of music or a movie is something that I can use? So to understand that and to understand alternative copyright information, we have to go through sort of a threshold concept here, which is copyright law in and of itself, which is a lot of gray area, but I'm going to try to give you some of the points of this, and then some things that we're 100% sure on, some things that need to be adjudicated. So copyright law is in the United States, also specifically. Speaking of Title 17 of the United States Code. So this gives authors the right to control the use of their work for a limited amount of time. And so what that limited amount of time is around 75 years after the death of the creator. And the reason that it's 75 years after the death of the creator is because of the Walt Disney Company. So every time Mickey Mouse comes into being really close to being in the public domain, they find some other way to push out the deadline for people. And one of the people, it's actually called, the one in the 70s where it pushed it out a little bit is actually called the Sonny Bono Copyright Extension Act. And so Sonny Bono, Sonny and Cher, was a legislator, and I can't remember if he was, I think he was a senator, but yeah, it was his law that, his name is on the law that actually extended that for the first time. A copyrighted work needs to be original work of authorship, which is a fixed, tangible medium of expression. So that means a painting, a drawing, a play, a book, anything that has a fixed, tangible expression. You may have heard on the news, if you have kids that play the video game Fortnite, or adults that play the video game Fortnite, that's fine. That they were getting, there were creators of dances that were suing the companies because the characters could do the dances that they were famous for, something like the moonwalk with Michael Jackson, or Alfonso Ribeiro doing the Carlton that he used to do on the Fresh Prince TV show. They were trying to sue. They could not. The judge threw that out and said, you cannot copyright a dance move that is not part of a choreograph, that is part of a play or something that's put on in a theater. So that's what they mean by a fixed, tangible medium of expression. And so images fall under that copyright law. So some common copyright myths are that if it doesn't have a notice on the image, it's not copyrighted, and that is false. Copyright happens at the moment of creation. So if you're sitting in your office and at home, because when you're at work, there's things that change under your contracts. But if you're at home and you draw a character on a napkin, that character belongs to you. And there's things that you have to do to make sure that the copyright is enforceable, but the moment that you create it, that is under copyright. You take a photo with your phone, or if you paint something, the moment it's created, it's copyrighted. If you don't, another myth is that, I'm not charging for it, so that's not a violation. That is also not true. Any time that you use something from someone else, it could be a copyright violation. And also, if it's posted to the internet, it's in the public domain. It's free to use. People put it on the internet. That is also not necessarily true. It can be, but it doesn't make it so. So if any of these have been the thought in your head about using a photo that you found off of the internet, it's not necessarily so. So what happens if you are caught breaking copyright? So copyright is taken care of under civil law. So it's not a criminal thing unless the violations exceed an amount of money. And so the second point on here where it says that the law provides a range from $200 to $150,000 for each work infringed. So if the court says, yeah, it's $150,000 each time that you've infringed on that work and you did it 20 times, that's 20 times $150,000 fine. That goes over the $2,500 that says it is now a felony. And that's when criminal law starts to get in. It can be attorney's fees. It can be that the court can impound all of the work that you've created, and the person who did the infringing can go to jail. So there are serious consequences to this if a copyright holder wants to pursue action for someone who's used the work. The biggest word of caution, don't ever use pictures of Godzilla. The people who own that copyright will sue anybody using that work, even if it's close. If you say it's a dinosaur, they're like, we think it's Godzilla, so he's super off limits. So now that I've ruined copyright for you, now you're like, oh, I can't do anything. You're saying I can't use any pictures? I'm taking my stuffed animal and going home. Well, so hang on there. I just want you to be understanding of what the risks are involved. So what Chris needs to have to use that image that we talked about in the story time here, Chris needs permission. Permission is the big point of being able to use an image or some sort of work in your presentation or in your document and whatnot. So how do you get permission? So permission, you can just ask. You'd be surprised at how many times if you just approach an artist online, through Instagram, through Twitter, through all the other social medias, they'll just say, yeah, go ahead, use my image. Let's see what you create out of it. So that's one way to get permission is by asking. Next way to get permission is to buy permission. There are whole companies that are set up around selling you permission to use an image. So for example, iStock, Shutterstock, or Adobe Stock. All of these sell an amount of use on an image. Check with the website to see what kind of usage rights you're given. So can you use it in print material? Can you use it online, etc.? It varies by company to company. You can get permission by using something that everyone has permission to use, and that is the public domain. So the public domain is something that, when I was talking about that copyright runs out, when copyright runs out on a work, then everyone is allowed to use it. So this image shows actually a whole bunch of stuff that went into the public domain this year. And so these were things that were created in the early 20s, as a matter of fact. So a bunch of Charlie Chaplin films, Buster Keaton. Yeah, remember that one. But yeah, all of this stuff is free for you to use. Those of you who know me and who will talk to me for more than 5 minutes until you're sick of it, but knows that I'm a big comic book fan. And so there were a ton of companies that were making comic books in the 50s and 60s that went out of business, and just their copyright ran out on all of their characters and all of their artwork. And there is a subgenre of comic book that was really popular in the 50s and 60s called medical romance. And so it was always like Cynthia Doyle, Nurse in Love, or Tom Barrett, Young Intern. And all of these images are free in the public domain. You can use them for whatever you want. So one of the fun things, I found this old ambulance on here. You can cut out that picture. You can put it into your PowerPoints. You can put it on a document, a flyer, take it into Photoshop, get rid of the words, change this stuff. So there's a whole treasure trove of these. And also most of the resources that I'm mentioning on here, I have links to all of these. They're available in the upper right-hand corner of the pod in Adobe Connect, and Braden will be sending these out after the presentation. And it will also be available on our YouTube channel when we transfer this presentation over to there. So it's a lot of fun to look through those books and find cool images that you can use. Fair use is another another provision under copyright law that says if you're using something that's a parody or for educational purposes, etc., fair use is way out of the scope of what I'm going to be talking about in this presentation. So it needs another hour or so of explaining when can you use fair use or not. Fair use is not something that you can just use as a blanket to say it's okay for me to use an image. So, but I did want to mention it in case some of you are thinking about that. So all of that was the threshold concept. What is copyright and how can you use it? So some creators said, well, I don't want to give away all of my permissions, but I also want to give away some of my permissions. And so that is where Creative Commons was brought in. And so an author can give permission preemptively with a set of restrictions that are not as restrictive as the copyright where it says don't ever use this without any of my permission. There are some things where you can say I give you some permissions to use this. So the way Creative Commons works is there are 4 elements, and these elements can be applied individually or in combination to preemptively give some permissions to use a work. So the way that these work, the first element is called attribution. So an author can say, you can use my artwork, you can use the stuff that I've created anytime that you want. You just have to say I made it. You just have to give an attribution to the author, and then you can do whatever you'd like with it. You can change it, you can edit it, adjust it for your audience, that sort of stuff. That's what attribution means. An author can also put no commercial. It means you can use this piece of art, but you can't sell it. No selling of it. You can use it all you want. This one is a lot for education and nonprofits. You just can't use it for a commercial purpose, any of the things that you use. No derivatives is the next element. So no derivatives means you can use the image or song or video, but you can't change it. No changes on it whatsoever. That's what the no derivatives element means. And then share alike. I really like this one. Share alike means that you can use that, you can use the picture, but whatever you create with that picture, you also have to share. So it's people collectively working on something that never met each other or asked. You can say, like say Braden is coming up with a booklet and he wants to use a photo that I took. I put it out with a share alike. That means that if he puts that picture into his book, he has to share that book with the same creative copyright attributes that were on the original photo. Make sense? So now with the different elements, you can combine those different elements into different ways of giving out permission. So for example, you could say, I just want it attributed. You just have to always say that the original author created this image. You could say attribution plus share alike. That means you have to attribute it, and then anybody who creates a new thing with my photo has to share it with another attribute tag. And so that means I have to be attributed for the picture, and the person who created the thing with my picture, say example for the book, that if you use the book again, you can, but then you have to attribute my picture and the person who made the book. Next one is attribution no commercial. That means you can attribute it, but you can't sell anything that you made with it. And then of course, attribution no commercial share alike. That means nobody can sell a derivative of what you've made, but you can still change it. Attribution no derivatives means you have to say that I did it, you can't change anything. And then finally, you can combine it so that there's attribution no commercial, no derivatives. So you can't sell it, you have to credit me, and can't change it. So you see on there that there's no combination, I think, of share alike and no derivatives, because those two conflict with each other. If you're allowed to share it, that means you could change it, right? So those are the different combinations that you can use. And the people who keep track of Creative Commons 1.0, 2.0, and whatnot, they give out these little images so that you can put those on the work, so that you know that which attributions are being set on those works. So where do you look for all these magical Creative Commons things that nice people have handed out for communities to use? One place is Pixabay. If you follow the NEDARC Facebook page, and you'll see every once in a while we post a Pixabay photo that is a EMS themed photo. So there's ambulances, EMS professionals, medical equipment, that sort of stuff. We'll post one on there every once in a while so that people know that that's a photo that you can use from Pixabay. PhotoPin is another great place to find stuff from. They have a super easy, when you download the photo, you can just download the attribution that you need to put on the website or video or whatever you're going to be using. And then Flickr is another great place. They're all images, but then you can filter by whether you want the photos to be able to be no derivative or derivative, commercial, not commercial. What's really great is, like, at the time of this recording, Flickr has gone down for 8 hours because they're doing a huge revamp on their database. And so just my luck, the day that I'm doing a presentation here to tell people to go check out Flickr, they are doing a huge overhaul and not available. So what I was going to show here is that for the event for this presentation, I have created 2 EMS pictures. These were drawn by me, and I am releasing them in Creative Commons. And so with an attribution attribute, and so element, excuse me. And so you are free to use these images on anything that you'd like, on flyers, on your social media, get it airbrushed onto the side of a van, something like that, be really cool. But you just have to attribute Chris K. Hoffman as the author. And I did not put a no derivatives attribute on it, so you are more than welcome to change it so it fits with whatever theme of the document or social media post that you're creating. So you can change their hair color, their skin color, change the uniform color, put some numbers on there, whatever you want to do with it. It's yours, just as long as, like I said, you say the original came from here. And so that's what Chris has done. We've come full circle. He is now using the Creative Commons licensed photos in his presentation. He's attributed the author. And what did I call her again? I forgot the name. Andrea. Yeah, super common name. I mean, it could be out of a hat, right? So Andrea, the fictional boss here, is thrilled with the presentation because she's not getting any letters from copyright holders saying, hey, I think you're using photos without our permission. It seems like a happy scene, yeah? I'm pretty excited for this guy. So that's everything I have for the presentation part of this. I appreciate everyone listening. I get really passionate about copyright. I do presentations at comic book conventions and whatnot on copyright, and I think it's a lot of fun. You may disagree, but once again, if you ever want to sit down and just chat more copyright stuff, you're more than welcome to corner me at a live event or give a call over here to the support phone. Like I said, here's all the links to the places that I talked about. That bit.ly link, it's about the 5th one up from the bottom where it says bit.ly/EMS kids. That is the Flickr page that has all of those different versions of those illustrations that I had made. All of those that I made are available just to download. You can get them off of there when Flickr comes back up, and you can download them from there. But I've got a few minutes here to take a couple of questions. Feel free to hit the chat box or the comic book ones, the public domain ones. We use a lot of the artwork. I have a side business where we make comic books and board games, and we use a lot of the imagery from there to post onto those, because that's one of the things about when you're creating documents or is actually getting all the artwork done. And so that there's one on there that says comicbookplus.com. The rest of the link there goes straight to the medical romance comics, but if you go straight to the main Comic Book Plus, there's superheroes, there were a lot of contemporaries to Tarzan, there was a lot of those types of comics, there's murder mysteries, old characters, Abbott and Costello, all sorts of artwork that's just kind of fun to have in the corner of presentations if you can find those. Okay, so it looks like we're done with questions here. Oh, we do have a question.
Hi, everybody. It's Mike. We do have a question. So, Chris, I'm wondering, if you go to Pixabay or any of those, can you get images that don't have, like, literally any of those 4 attachments at all? I mean, it's just like, you don't even have to attribute it to anybody, so it's like, really, like, take it. There's no strings attached.
Right. Great question. So, yes, and Pixabay is the best example of that. Most of the stuff on Pixabay is no attribution. You literally can just take that photo and use it for whatever you want. And so one of the things, though, I will caution from websites where you upload, like any of the websites where there's uploads, there's nothing stopping someone from uploading a copyrighted photo. So if I take a a screen cap off of Jurassic Park or something like that, and I upload that picture to one of those sites, and I say Creative Commons license, that's not quite right. Since it's just a huge user base of people who are just uploading random things, there is the possibility that there could be copyrighted stuff up there. So it is still use your caution. There was a picture that I was going to use in this presentation. Oh, and all of the pictures in this presentation were all either public domain. I took them 100%. I found all of these photos. One of the things that I suggested when you use one of these websites is to not go in expecting exactly what you want. Go in and see what they have and see if it will work towards what you want, or the theme that you're looking for and whatnot. If you really need something specific, you probably need to go to one of the websites where you have to pay for it.
All right. There are just a few questions here. So Natasha asked, when you attribute it to someone, can you just mention the author in your presentation, or does it have to be typed in?
That is a really good question. I believe that it has to be typed in. And so generally speaking, what people will do is at the very end of the presentation have a slide that just has thanks to everybody, and then you have the things in there. What the spirit of the Creative Commons is, if someone has an attribution, you're supposed to make it easy to find the person who made it. And so it's a lot like doing a reference in a peer-reviewed article. Your best effort to get back to the person who originally did it is kind of the spirit behind what you're doing. So I'm pretty sure that it needs to be, but I've never actually been asked that specifically.
And then Joe had a question as well that I think is pretty similar. He just said, can you explain what constitutes attribution? What would meet the need to attribute a photo to its author?
Right. And generally speaking, what I've seen people do is they have either, like on this PowerPoint, there would just be in the corner photo by, and then whatever name they have on their, if it's from Flickr or their Flickr account. If you look at any of those websites where you go and get these pictures, generally speaking, there's a button that says attribute the author. And then from there, you can click and cut and paste. PhotoPin will actually give you a link to go back to the artist. Pixabay, most of the pictures don't have to be attributed, so you don't have to worry about it. But the places that do ask for an attribution will generally also give you a link. Nice thing about Flickr is when you copy it, it will, if you just right-click and copy the picture out of the website, it automatically puts the attribution into your clipboard. So when you paste, it will put the picture and the attribution for the author. Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff on there. Like the other thing, talking about public domain, most photos and things that are created by the government are public domain. So pictures of the moon landing and stuff like that, pictures of presidents, pictures of people who work in the government, most of those are in the public domain. What doesn't count on there is a lot of national parks. So there's a lot of national parks that have photos that you can go and find, and then they say it's up to you to figure out whether it's copyrighted or not. The other one that's like really has a lot of cool stuff but is terrible to navigate is the Library of Congress. It's just awful to navigate because you'll go there, you'll find the perfect picture, and then you'll look at the there's no indication on the picture that you have to be in the Library of Congress to actually see the photo. You can just see a digital one. There's no way to filter out ones that I can use from online. But there are other people who have curated collections of stuff on other websites like Flickr and whatnot, where they've taken those pictures off of the Library of Congress, put them somewhere easier to find, and then you can use those. So basically what you're trading when you're using these Creative Commons and public domain stuff is you're trading your time. If you go to iStock Photo will have the picture you want, no doubt, but it will cost you, And so what you're trading there is to say, well, instead of paying, $10, $60, $100 or whatever for the photo or the clip that I want. I'm trading a half hour of my time to wade through stuff that is close and that maybe I could put into an image editing program and get perfect to where I'm at. Another great place to put all of these things would be into Adobe Spark to make your presentations, which is a presentation we're going to do at the in-person meeting in August. I hope people are signed up for that. Yeah? Nice.
All right, I think that is our half hour. If you have any questions, always don't hesitate to reach out to your NEDARC TA or Chris, and we can, find out some answers for you and help you out. But hopefully this has been helpful to help you know what photos you can use and what ones, how to use them properly. The next Tech Talk will be the 4th Thursday in June, and it will be, Chris actually will be doing that one as well, and he'll be showing us kind of the way to build a research poster for that grantee meeting in August, and he'll kind of go through the nuts and bolts of how to actually put it together in conjunction with the webinar that the EIIC did about kind of what it is and what kind of stuff he'd put on it. He'll show us how to actually do it and create one that looks nice. So thanks everybody for your participation, and let us know if you have any further questions through email or whatever, and we'll see you next month. Thanks.